Welcome to Hypnotize Me, the podcast about hypnosis, superconscious, knowledge, and therapy. A journey into the mind with your host, Martin Castor.
Welcome to another podcast, Hypnotize Me. My name is Martin Castor, and the topic today is actually SoulKey Therapy. It's kind of like a peculiar name, isn't it? Because soul key to the soul. What is that? Do I have to believe in it? Is it past lives? Is it spiritual hypnosis? Well, it's actually everything. And the reason why I'm here today doing all that I do that is related to hypnosis, which is all that I do, performing on stages in Vegas, hypnosis shows, mentalist shows, developing new techniques, trauma releases, even work with people from the government, and seeing clients all over the world. That is all due to one thing. Once I got a gift certificate for past life regression, and I didn't believe in it. I went like, this is stupid. Like, being a young kid and getting a gift certificate like that, I wanted the experience, but at the same time, I was obnoxious. I was not really believing in it. And I would say from my perspective right now, I would probably have been one of my own worst clients if I got to see me as a client. So my attitude wasn't right. And looking back at my, I kind of like had this misconception about everything. And the therapist that I saw, kind of like totally matched and checked all the boxes of my misconceptions of a spiritual hypnotist. Everything went wrong. And I just lied there. The smell of her breath, the kids playing in her yard, a dog scratching the door, and it was all go deeper, the old school kind of way. And I just lie there like, no, I'm not getting anywhere. Let's just pretend. And I just lie there, got totally annoyed with everything. And eventually I had a thought, I wonder what would happen if I just let go and allowed myself just to I got a nap. And instantly my mind kind of like tricked me and overwhelmed me with amazing insights and display of a past life that my conscious mind at the same time went like, this is something you're making up. This is something you've probably seen in TV or whatever. And I kept thinking these thoughts as I was experiencing everything on a deeper emotional level. I knew that I didn't come up with that. I knew it wasn't my imagination. And at the same time, a conscious thought it was. So that kind of like conflict was really interesting. And the content of my experience and the emotions embedded in there and the answers to my questions were so overwhelming that it kind of blew my mind. And I got really scared with the with the information. I'm like, no, nobody will believe me. Like, put everything down on paper, did some drawings, did some notes, and hid it in a drawer. And I didn't want to look at that at all again, because I thought I just went completely cuckoo with this experience. So I admitted something happened, but it was so overwhelming in so many ways because I really wasn't prepared. And probably because I had the attitude that I had. But when all things are said, and all this is mentioned, that's the reason why I'm still doing hypnosis today, because that experience was so overwhelming that within a short while after, I decided from this thought, I had this thought like, if I was such a bad client, and in my perspective of how I felt the therapist did their job, and I thought that was a really bad job, what would happen if I was a good therapist and I had a good client? How far could I take this? That question kept kind of like looping in my mind. Like, I really want to know, because I felt so drawn to it. I felt so attracted to it. And I ended up connecting with Dick Sutphin, the late author Richard Sutphin, who basically wrote every book on past life regression in the 60s and 70s and all the way up to even early 2000s. And grew a friendship with him, and he took me through, many experiences. And I helped out on Conscious Life Expo in Los Angeles, and we became really good friends. And that was the kind of mentor that I was looking for. And I started teaching. I saw a lot of clients over a period of a couple of years, and I started teaching because people were like, hey, can you teach us the way you do it? Because that's kind of interesting. And I kind of like discovered this structure in the background. Like, I had my own experiences, and I felt like there was way more to just past lives. What about when you leave the past life? What about in between and all of that? And for some reason, specific type of clients got attracted to me and the way I did it. And they always wanted more than just the past life. So from a very early age as a hypnotist, I started discovering that, whatever's in the manual, all the questions that I'm supposed to ask, if they don't benefit the client, why not just ask the client what they need? Because there's a reason for them being here, and there's a reason for them getting this session right now. And it's not for me to decide which answers they're looking for. It's up to them to actually just speak freely and allow themselves to embed themselves deep into that experience and see what happens. So I kind of like allowed them to do what they needed to, and I was kind of like keeping track of them in the background, taking all the notes, making sure whatever questions they may have had beforehand also got answered. And I found this amazing structure, like this, structure. Let's call it a structure. Like, whenever this happens, these are the options, and this is the behind the curtain kind of structure. And as long as you honor that, there's everything fits together. And whatever people believe in, let's get back to the skeptics in a little bit. And I have a lot of questions I want to answer because I did a survey where people ask questions about SoulKey. So I'm hopefully I'm going to go through all of them. So just wait and see. But I just want to finish my introduction first. So what I did was, I allowed this structure to kind of like grow and develop. And I kept a lot of things to myself that I've experienced with other clients, but I didn't tell my new client. And without them knowing, they kind of like refer to the same type of structure. That was mind blowing to me, because one thing that I still have is my skepticism about, new stuff, people's claims, what hypnosis can do, and pseudo science or whatever. I'm like, are you really sure? Like, prove that to me. That's still my mindset. So I really wanted to investigate, and I really wanted to, it's not because I don't trust in my clients, but I don't want to communicate with the conscious, because the conscious will lie and, make up whatever story it feels like. I'd rather talk to their super conscious, soul conscious, not the subconscious, but I got a defined thing that I call super conscious, that is the all knowing. So that also leads me into the, just because you do past life regression or spiritual hypnosis doesn't have to really conflict with your religious beliefs or how you believe in something divine or whatever. It's not related to any God or whatever. Not in my perspective. From seeing thousands of clients, I never had anyone meeting God as in the Bible or God as in the Quran or whatever. I never prophets or anything like that. Or every client was a king in a past life. No, never happened. No client was ever a butterfly or a dog in a past life. For some reason, that doesn't happen either. But I'll get back to that later. But what happens is everyone has divine experiences and answers to their questions. It's kind of like, what is my life purpose? And there's two levels of that. One, right now in this body of mine, this life I chose. And secondary, as a soul. Like, what does this mean to my journey as a soul? I believe that we're all soul beings on human journeys, in a way. Even got that tattooed as a sleeve on my arm, because I truly believe in that. When we're done, we're not done. It's just a teeny tiny step in a big world of being a soul. And that is fantastic in so many ways. Is it everybody's purpose to get that type of divine knowledge or insights? I don't think so. Is it somebody's choice? Absolutely. Is it necessary for some people? 100%. But don't worry, no client will knock on your door if they're not ready yet. And that's also one of my things where I changed the game of how I did past life regression, because even Dick taught me, like, if a client doesn't see anything, if there's any resistance, it's because they're not ready yet. And honestly, I don't believe in that, because they made the effort, they found you, they had thoughts about it, they connected with you, paid you, and they showed up on session day. How are they not entitled to an experience? So I kind of like changed that a little bit, thinking maybe it's me who's not ready. So what do I need to do to make sure I will be a perfect fit to my client? And all of a sudden, all the doors opened. And I found myself seeing clients that kind of like, not swiftly, but went through a really interesting past life with a lot of answers in regards of current life, and then ended up in this kind of like in-between realm where a lot of crazy, interesting stuff happened. And it turned out that there's a structure to that too. And I tried to figure it out in a way. And I had several conversations with Dick Sutton about that. And he said, yeah, there's a big realm there. It's the in-between life. And I haven't really done a whole lot about it. I took people to their soul origin or whatever, but it was not as much his thing as past lives were. And all of a sudden, I discovered the book Soul Journeys by Michael Newton. And I found out that he had a class coming up in England. So I traveled there, and that was unfortunately one of his last in-person classes due to his age. But I was there, and I got it. And it all resonated with me in so many ways, but there was also limits to how they did it. Like one of the examples that I want to use, because I did get approval by him to say it, was in the old style of doing Life Between Life, the Michael Newton Institute way was go through a most recent past life, because that will be your ticket into the life in between. As if you just died in a past life and that's why the door's open and here we go. And I'm like, something doesn't sit right with me on that idea. So imagine that spirit guides or soul beings or my higher self, my soul knowledge, or whoever helps me, right? Divine, knows everything about me in this now, the now I'm in right now, present time. They must know that I'm undergoing a session right now, visiting a past life, and that's not my ticket into the life in between life. So why do we put up with these charades in theater to trick somebody who's way smarter than us, who has way more knowledge? Isn't that weird? Or is it because it's required for us to go through a past life to kind of like allow the body to adapt to the transition? And that's not the answer either, because we're not really taking that journey, are we? We didn't really die in that past life. We're visiting from our current life in a past life. So it's all through some sort of layers of memory. And we might experience it as the now. So I'm like, why are we pretending to be, excuse me for my language, stupid, since we're not? And why do we pretend whoever helps us, the higher being of ourselves or our own conscious, is more stupid than us? So we can pretend something and we think they believed in it. It doesn't make sense. So I didn't fully understand it. And I asked that question to Dr. Michael Newton, and he kind of like pulled me over in a break and he said, yeah, you're right. That's a way to do it. We don't do it though, but keep doing what you're doing. That's a great thing. And that was kind of like my introduction and departure from the Newton Institute quickly. And that's many, many years ago. But what happened though was all of a sudden, basically every single client that I was seeing had similar experiences. Like we have something we call the in-between of everything. We call that the fireplace room. then a past life of importance to your current life, then fireplace room, then usually in the life between life, where a lot of stuff can happen. Really, so many things can happen, and that seemed to be kind of like the structure. There's, that's the standard. There's always many other ways. Some people experience a whole lot in a past life. Some people don't. Some people visit all the stations, as I call them, in the life between, and some people don't. Some people only want to go see the counselor, and they don't, and some people do. So it's not we don't do everything we can to fulfill the conscious request for the session because it doesn't know. So when people are induced and they're in the right state and it's all open, trust me, their superconscious will choose the path. And I trust that 1000%. I don't trust the conscious. I mentioned that already. So that's how we started up. And again, still to this day, there's stuff I keep secret on behalf of my clients, but they still see the same thing that I know is there. And is not even mentioned. And I'm not interfering in their emotional experiences. I'm not manipulating their visuals or whatever. I'm always asking questions for them to give me all the valid information, because that's the only way to do it. So if you ever experience past life regression where the therapist told you everything about you, who you were, and all of that, I actually wouldn't believe in it. And I can say that pretty solid, because out of 100 sessions where all those 100 people were told who they were, I had a dream about it, and they want to go pursue that in a session, 100 out of 100 didn't experience that in a SoulKey session. And they know why when they get there, and they know why it got activated. And here comes the real experience, which is something completely beyond. So was it wrong to do the first thing? No, because it led them to the path of experiencing something more. So to me, it's all about the safety. It's all about creating this safe space and bubble with my clients so they can go investigate and get the answers they're looking for, which could be a lot of things. So that's basically the origin of SoulKey. That's how it happened. And that's why I'm like, I need to put this together. I had a couple of sessions myself with an American medium and somebody else. And I was told by my counsel, put it down into a manual. You know how it fits, and just leave it at that. And it's basically been untouched for more than 20 years as the original way of doing it was. And it still works. It still adapts to our language today. And it still adapts to everything that's happening around the world right now. Actually, even more now than it did 20 years ago. So I don't know. It's amazing. It keeps, surprising me every time I see a client, because I still have disbelief. I go like, this is kind of crazy what I'm doing right now. What if that person doesn't believe in it? Blah, blah, blah. But anyway, it always ends up being some marvelous, really interesting journey. And I'm right there. That's the privilege. I have a first row, front seat, right there to see somebody's, what can you call it? Like perspective of the world change over a couple of hours. From maybe I hate myself, I hate my life, I hate my body, blah, anything like that, to wow, I know why I'm here. I love all that I am. And this is the reason. That's a big shift, and it's a big change. So the purpose of a SoulKey session is not necessarily to do therapy, like, oh, let's do some trauma release. It's to get a lot of answers that automatically will let go of stuff that's connected to you. So SoulKey session is soul communication, connecting to the soul wisdom or soul knowledge. It's advanced past life regression, and it's life in between life experiences. And it's a big thing. Like there's so many things that can happen. But I actually want to go through some of the questions. I think I collected almost 30 questions. I'll do my best to go through all of them in this session. And I think I kind of like narrowed all of them down so they're not alike or anything like that. I did my best anyway to sort it out. So first of all, cheers. So let's think about this. Let's start out with some personal insights. There were some questions there that was very much about me and my own experiences. So, what past life experience have stood out to you, and how have they shaped your current life? Yeah. What personal past life experiences stood out to you? Well, I would say all of them, in some sort of way. All the past life experiences I had, I think that's 6 or 7, maybe 8, something like that. And they all are very different from each other. None of them are fancy lives or anything like that. It's all very emotional. It's all very liberating. And all of them is a pretty big contrast to my current life. One of them that stands out a little bit more than the rest, though, is, well, excuse me for jumping a little bit, but all the experiences I've had at the time in my life I had them made so much sense to that moment and gave me something so I could move on or grow or whatever, and then do my next steps. And then when it feels right, I got another one, something like that. But one of them, I've had several experiences, and one of them that's really important is, of course, the one I had that was my very first one as a Jewish boy, Second World War, Berlin, and where I went investigating in Berlin to prove to myself that everything I experienced was just made up. And all the details I had from the experience and the session turned out to be absolutely true. And some of it could not be proved unless I went down there and saw it with my own eyes. That was mind-boggling, but that's not the one I'm actually, I want to focus on, because I've had like an alchemist kind of Egyptian experience. I've had the past life as a Jewish boy, World War II, as a what was I, tomato picker or something like that, like a day laborer on Crete in Greece back in 1600 something. As a very young boy, as one of the settlers, riding through America when all the settlers came and got killed by Indians and natives. Awesome. That was an extraordinary experience in so many ways, which sounds kind of like peculiar when we talk about I died, and that was amazing. But all the emotions in it and the exchanges of interaction, that was really interesting. But the one that stands out, interesting enough, is I think it was World War One, and I believe it was Belgium. And I knew that my dad and a lot of the other men actually left for the war or got, dragged into the war. So mainly it was just females left, or those who were injured or whatever. And my mom had this booth on the town square where she sold like potatoes or whatever. And that was the way to get by, right? And despite of the entire world being in some sort of crisis and everybody was afraid and everybody was crying and they lost their dear ones, I was happy. And it took me a while in that experience to figure out, like, I'm looking at all this misery. So my conscious mind and my superconscious knew that everything I'm looking at right now is misery, like truly misery. That was the only thing I could see. But on the inside, everything was about, hey, this is a nice moment. I'm feeling pretty, oh, look, there's a rock. And, I could play with a rock or whatever. And halfway through that experience where my mind went like, what's wrong with me? Something's wrong, right? But it felt so liberating that I could see beyond all the misery. I didn't even detect it because I was happy every single day, and I brought laughter and smiles to other people, which was so, refreshing. And I discovered I had Down syndrome, so that's why I didn't get drafted or anything like that. And I was living in my own little bubble. My mom didn't have any hard work with me. I was self-managing, but I kept people smiling because I was laughing, I was smiling, I was playing around, and I was noticing all the things that wasn't misery. And that life meant a lot to me, and I ended up dying pretty young, as I remember it. But the learning curve for me was, don't focus on everybody else's problems all the time. Cherish every moment that is special to you in every moment. You can look at 10 bad things, but what about looking at the one thing that makes you smile or your eyes tingle a little bit? Do that and investigate that instead. And that have taught me in so many situations in my life where, life hits you straight in the face with an uppercut or whatever. You go like, yeah, okay. So what's the learning in this? What's the easiest next step to make me smile? And what did I just learn that's actually good? And that has been really life-changing in so many ways. So I think that's the one that stands out right now. You might ask me in 2 weeks from now, it might be one of the others. But it's been a while since I had my last past life regression, and I don't really feel like getting one right now because I'm on a really good path. So I have no desire, which also leads me to, clients who wants this is not just random people who knock on your door or pick something from the menu. It's people who have been thinking about it. There's something that they feel attracted to. There's something that makes them curious, and they just know somewhere deep inside there's something for them. And then all of a sudden they connect with you and you offer them a session. That's it. What did you learn from your own life between life experiences? And can you share transformative insight? Oh, yes, I can. What did I learn? There's so many. Let me think if there's one that stands out. Well, let me bring out, well, this is actually, it's kind of like a life in between life experiences because everything there to me is magical. I might bring up one from my soul groups, but there's also the council, how to get to know them. You can travel to the origin of your soul. There's so many options there. And there's your gatekeeper that you know from way back. But one that really stands out to me is actually, it's actually this. Let me get everything right. Yes. I had just experienced a past life where I was part of some Knights Templar or soldiers that looks similar to Knights Templar way back in the medieval times, crusading, speaking God's word. And something was wrong with the system because we believed in God then. And we were supposed to kind of like share the word with people and convey them into, believing God as well, the Christian God. And we were told that those who didn't, let's burn down the villages and make a great example so the next village will know that they better convert into what we believe in. And we were like, that's not what we're supposed to do. Like, why do we do it with violence? It has to come from within. And there was a group of us that kind of like got fed up with that, of all the killing and all of that, because it was, it was brutal in so many ways. And we ended up, breaking free, throw away our shields and all of that, and help people rebuild the villages and all of that, and give them hope, because that would be the real word of God, which was what I believed in that life. Right now, I'm open to anything really. I believe in the divine me and the divine everything. And we ended up kind of like, we know that there was people hunting us because we gave hope back. So now we got the villagers to fight back a little bit. And it was kind of like the rumor was, we were dangerous. So our old soldier pals and all of them started telling the stories that we were the ones, burning down villages, not them. So now they had a scapegoat, right? And we knew they were hunting for us because we made so much trouble to them. And we kind of like found this tiny castle-ish kind of place somewhere in the western part of France. And there was a courtyard, and we were hiding behind some of the haystacks in between the horses. We just hid it there. And the people who lived there was like, yeah, you can hide there for the night, but when it's dawn, please get up and get out of here, right? In the middle of the night, some of the horses got a little bit, seemed a little bit nervous. And it turned out to be the fact that we were surrounded by soldiers. And trust me, they wanted a fight. They really wanted a fight with us. So they were shooting arrows with fire into the haystacks. So the building behind us was burning. The haystacks was burning as well. And we kind of like moved on the outside. So in front of us was the exit gate with all the soldiers waiting for us. They even climbed the, I'm not sure what it's called, like high rails or whatever, surrounding the courtyard or standing up there on the bridges. And we knew that that's the only way out. And there they were, they just wanted to fight us and kill us and kind of like claim, yeah, we killed them, right? And without a word being said, I think we were like 11 or 12 people or something like that. We just looked at each other, smiling and nodding. We knew what the answer was. So we kneeled down, one knee on the floor, hold our swords at the blade like this with the handle upwards, and we put it down like this. So we actually handed over our swords, telling them we won't fight, and we just stepped backwards into the fire without anyone screaming or anything like that, because we knew that's our way out. That's the only way we could show the people that we will resist this. We were right, they weren't. So that was kind of like a very emotional experience and very vivid in so many ways. And kind of like get goosebumps talking about right now. But when I got to Life in Between shortly after that and went into my soul group room, everything was kind of like a dome-shaped white atmosphere, seemed very light, flowy in a way. And all of a sudden, here comes soldiers kneeling in front of me, and I got kind of like semi-scared because I just left this experience like really emotional, still processing. And now I thought, okay, this is going to be wonderful somehow. And now I see something that refers everything to that. And as I kind of like got a little bit nervous, not knowing what to do, I just started to hear all of them laughing on the inside of those helmets. And all of a sudden, it just turned into a big embrace of love and appreciation that kind of like totally healed my experience. And in that moment, because I didn't fully know, I didn't know after the experience why I had that experience. But in that moment where I got embraced, everything fell into place. I'm like, wow, okay, so shit, this is it. This is how we do it. So it doesn't end. You know, all those things are references now to experiences, to emotions, to love, to connection. And it was all like, oh, yes, we did it. It was not about the battle. It was about how we stuck together. It was that group experience. So that's how close I can get talking about it. And to me, it means a whole lot. Probably doesn't mean as much to you guys listening to it, you know, through a camera and a microphone, but there's so many emotions in it. So yeah, it still makes me think and be reflective on it, because it's a powerful experience. But there's so many things to mention when it comes to you know, experiences from SoulKey. As a creator of SoulKey, how have these personal experiences inspired the techniques and philosophy behind the method? Interesting question. So it kind of like leads into, so when you created SoulKey, did you do that from your own experiences? And what about the philosophy? It's actually the opposite way. SoulKey was built on all the experiences I had, not necessarily my own, but from hundreds of clients who mentioned the same thing. So it kind of like became the blueprint of how I guided people. And the philosophy is not mine. It's something I adapted. It's, of course, from my own experiences when I met my counsel, my spirit guides, them guiding me what's right and wrong. And it felt so true to me when they told me. But also everything that concurs with, you know, the standardization or normalization of the same message from client to client. That turned into being, this is the SoulKey philosophy, because SoulKey, you can, so to say, SoulKey is not a Martin Castor invention. as it's mine. I came up with that during a weekend where I was, sipping red wine and looking at, at the ocean. No, it's from multiple experiences gathered from my own experience and hundreds of other people from a big time span of several years, figuring out, oh, there's a method, there's a structure here. Let's do that. So it's more dictated by spirit guides and counsels than it's actually something let's put this together, if that makes sense. So that would be my answer to that. What are some unexpected or profound moments that you've encountered as a SoulKey therapist, and how did you handle them? Unexpected or profound moments. Well, I kind of said this already. So having the privilege of being this close to people as they change and be able to listen to their philosophy, even just, the fact that we can monitor conversations between client, soul conscious, and whoever visits them in their experiences, that is mind blowing. That philosophy is wow. When it's said out loud, it's yours as well. And once in a while, there's a message for you too. Not that it's something we're looking for, but now and then you get offered a message, and it's just say thank you. And it's probably something that hits you right where it needs to be hitting you in that very moment, and it's good because we all opened and we all connected, and it's all for us, all of us, of course, right? I think one of the profound or unexpected moments I want to come up with is, it might sound a little bit negative, but it really isn't. It really isn't. It's all about safety and comfort. When I started this in the beginning, there was this very 90s occult, clairvoyant mediumship wave all over Europe, and it was everywhere in TV, and people talked about demons and all of that. So that was kind of like a collective conscious thought. Everybody thought that things might be dangerous, and what if you let somebody in? SoulKey is built in a way so no matter what happens, nothing can enter the realm that you're in with your client unless it has a positive connection or a positive message. There needs to be a positive purpose. Nothing else can enter. Do clients once in a while portray a visitor as something that might seem a little bit evil looking or dangerous? Yes, but it's all perception. I've learned that when clients see that, I will just go, yeah, so that's the visitor right now. And when you finally know who they are, they let you know who they are, you will see the true them. And it always changes into something beautiful because I know there's a positive intention of being there. And sometimes the conscious needs this kind of kick in the ass to kind of let go of stuff, knowing that everything is okay. But the one experience I've had was something that was really, really interesting, where I was teaching a class and they were doing sessions, and there was kind of a big class. So there was 3 or 4 people in every room. One was being the therapist, another one was being the client. And in this particular room, there was 2 people observing. And I usually tell my students that, if you need me, just call my name in your mind and I'm probably going to be there. And in this case, that was the same thing. And for some reason, the person who was the client wasn't really getting anywhere. And they said, well, something is weird because it got really cold in there. And he'd just lie there on the table shaking. And it looked like he was kind of levitating. And I was like, okay, that's a new one. It might be somebody messing with our minds. And I noticed that a few people in the room was a little bit scared of that. And I just looked at him whatever you are, whoever you are, nobody freaks out from doing this. So only let the positive intentions come through. And his eyes turned open, completely black, and he did a big exhale, and color came back, and he was like, oh, yeah, I just let go of that. I don't need that anymore. I just want to be me. And then he entered into the realm of SoulKey, which was really interesting. Never have had that happen before. Never have had that happen after. But I was so calm in that moment. And I could easily been scared, but I think that would have provoked whatever it was, and everybody was okay afterwards. So I trust this so much that nothing can really get me nervous in a session. I know everything is there for good and it means something. And afterwards, when everything was done and we had talking about the day after in class, he started mentioning a couple of things that was related to that. And he said, you know what? I needed this because it might be that you have this experience, but to me, it meant something completely different and it's all good. So that comfort actually told me that, yep, keep believing. And for those who might got a little bit scared from it, well, it was like, oh, so we can do that too. It's all perception. And sometimes that energy needs to be there because getting slightly scared or nervous brings out some energy. And sometimes we need that to be able to push on in a session. Yeah. And another one I want to mention is something I bring up often when I teach this is at one certain point in a past life regression where the client didn't really feel like they could move anywhere. And she felt like I'm stuck behind a fence, but looking at the fields, there's kind of like a hill there. And it seems like the villagers are up there at the hill and there's a fire. And we were like, okay, so just go up there. And she's like, I can't walk. It's impossible. I'm stuck here. And we called in the spirit guide, and the spirit guide was kind of like cradling as if it was a baby. And the client went like, oh, I feel like a baby right now. So the spirit guide holds me and it's okay. Now we can travel. So they traveled all the way up the hill and there was kind of like observing from the outside, and there was angry villagers. And on a pole, there was this lady being tied up to the pole, and everybody was kind of like hitting her with sticks, calling her a witch or whatever. And they started this fire underneath of her, and kind of like, death over the witch kind of, atmosphere. And all of a sudden, the client went, oh, she's pregnant. That's me. So the spirit guide holding the baby was the client, and the baby was inside of her stomach, and she felt everything her mother felt in that moment, which is a terrible experience, with human eyes. But it meant everything to her and a pregnancy she had in this life, with knowing why and why you're still connected and the purpose of that. And it was so freaking beautiful that I think, well, I was the first one crying and everybody was crying afterwards because it was so beautiful. Because there's so much more to life than just simple things, right? And as I just said right now, human hat or soul hat is a term I use when I'm teaching as well. Some of the things you will see, if you wear your human hat and your human conscious, you will go, that's bad. That's really, that is dangerous. That is stupid. That is something that will make me angry or whatever, all the negative stuff. And, I get it. A lot of things that's happening in this world is not righteous. It's not fair. It's not okay. But from my experience, that gives me the comfort of saying this right now is from thousands of sessions. Every client who's been in a similar situation, both being, let's say, the executioner, but also the victim, all talk about afterwards the importance of getting the experience, and the experience is not the outcome. The outcome is the knowledge afterwards, which is where I wear my soul hat. And sometimes you have to look at something going like, yeah, my human soul, my human mind right now is hurt by what I'm watching, but my soul hat is going like, whoa, I wonder what that turns out to be. Like, what knowledge is there? I want to know. And that is my kind of like investigative mindset throughout a session. I want my client to know why. Why was this, experience important to them? Why did they have to see it that way? Whatever comes up. So those are the two things I want to bring up from unexpected or profound moments in my own experiences. Have your past life experience as a Tibetan monk in your life in Berlin provided, let's go again. Have your past life experiences as a Tibetan monk or your life in Berlin provided wisdom that influenced SoulKey's creation? No. Not in the terms of, oh, I'm taking out chunks and pieces and I'm putting that into the manual. Not like that. The Berlin experience was my first one, and that's the reason why SoulKey ever happened, because I got so curious that I needed to know more. Technically, no. Curiosity, yes. The Tibetan monk, yes, it gave me something. Because there was a chapter in the manual about parallel lives that I never really investigated, but it was meant to be there, and I didn't really fully believe in it, knowing how much energy your soul uses to run this vessel and what it takes to travel and all of that. So there's some math and some logistics there that I didn't get to add up. So if you had a parallel life, both of those lives couldn't be like 100% functioning, because there's not the full energy you need to be able to run a vessel like this. So there needed to be some sort of disadvantages. But my good friend Dick Southway, and I had a conversation with him about that. So I never had the experience. I actually never had a client who had an experience like that. So I have difficulty believing in it because I haven't had the experience. And one of the rules is, you never go look for something. And I didn't believe in it, and I didn't want the experience. But he said, hey, you want to do a session? I'm like, okay. And we ended up doing a session where I actually experienced a parallel life, an overlapping life, in regards to my current life of being a Tibetan monk. And that ended up being why the chapter is still there, and maybe there's some more details to it, because now I can tell my own story. But it's more rare than it's common that it happens with overlapping lives. But my own experience was something like, just about the time where I got the gift certificate, I went to some meditation groups before that. Nothing ever really happened. Everybody was doing something and with some psychic ability or whatever. Everybody was doing something where they felt healing or had some internalized experiences. And I was just there doing this like, I don't see anything. Really trying, right? But apparently on the exact date where I went to one of those groups, and I had all of a sudden a fantastic experience, and everything's kind of like been open ever since. Figured out in that session that on that day I got killed and murdered as a Tibetan monk, and that was the date on that evening. And all of a sudden I could relax. I could sit there meditating and connect with a spirit guide that felt freaking amazing. And I didn't put the dots together until afterwards, because I couldn't remember that date, but it came up with my past life experience that was overlapping with this life. So there's so much more into that would be another hour of just telling that. But definitely that is one of the experiences that has influenced the way we're teaching SoulKey now. It didn't add anything to it, but it just influenced the importance of remembering every step in it, because there's truth to everything. That's the importance. All right, so let's move further on and talk about the SoulKey as a tool for growth. There's a couple of questions in there. How does the life between life experience guide us in choosing our next life challenges and relationships? That's a good question. So in life between lives, there's a room we call the life choosing room, where in your current life, you can see what you turned down and why you chose the body and life you're in right now, which to a lot of people doesn't make sense before the session, but there's issues. And then throughout the session, when they get that information, they love their own choice. Now they love the body, they love their lives, because they know why they've been through things they have and what to do with it now, which is, move on, go ahead, high five, let's do it. So the life between life is not necessarily a preparation for your next life's challenges like that, because there might be alterations to it. But it's more like, there's certain things you want in this life as a soul. That's why you chose it. And you don't know that as the human you are. And you will only get, some hints and ideas for it, because you have to go through the real emotional experiences to fully gain what you're getting. So a reference would be like in some past life experiences, we do what we call the death scene. So we kind of like make peace with it. and we gather all the good stuff and the reasons, and we let go of everything that might be connected to your current life that's negative, because that's part of that process. For some people in that, when they do the status afterwards, when they're kind of like hovering above the dead body and they go like, oh yeah, you did a great job. That would be one of the options. Like they're really happy with everything that happened, and they're moving on. Now that's the next step, and they're prepping for a different next life. And others might go, I didn't make the right choices, but they still have two options now. Move on, knowing what they know, or do something similar again. So, but plan it in a different way, so you have better chance of actually making those decisions or those changes. That would be one way of doing it. So in that way, that's how choosing our next life challenges and relationships might help out a little bit. But it's more like understanding who you are now. It's very rare that any client will get information about next life's challenges. Understand your current ones first, right? And move on. That's it. Can SoulKey Therapy help us consciously access insights about our soul plane and karmic balance? And how does this benefit personal development? Yes, it can. And strike out karmic. I don't truly believe in that. I've never been in a session where anyone involved with the session or anyone visiting, like entities, spirit guides or whatever, talked about karma in any sort of way. So I don't fully, truly believe in that. But I believe in personal development, personal growth, and every insight that you're getting will make you grow as a human being. No doubt. It might be like a psychological upgrade. It might be a physiological upgrade. It might be emotional upgrade. It could be all of the above. So there's so many things there that will change your life perspective and lead to easily to make different choices moving forward, knowing who you really are now. So yes, in that sense, yes. How does exploring past lives help us understand patterns, relationships, and challenges in this life? A lot. So every past life that we choose in a SoulKey session has a purpose right now. There must be something there that is guiding us in our current life, something that gives us answers, something that gives us a tool, a knowledge, wisdom, an emotion, hidden skill, or whatever, so we can move forward from now on. Some clients might even have some physiological disadvantages. They might be diagnosed for it. They might not be. And sometimes, let's say there's, this processing a past life and we do the death scene and everything is accepted and it's okay. Some of these things have a tendency of disappearing right after, which is kind of interesting. To mention one, I had a lady, she had throat problems her entire life, always wore a scarf. Well, no, that's actually false. She wants to wear a scarf, but she couldn't have anything around her neck unless it was kind of like a collar, a high collar, but anything around her neck she couldn't. So she got sick every winter. And it turned out that she was a old sailboat captain in the West Indies, with a load full of merchandise or food or whatever, from sailing from one country to the other. And in one of those journeys, they ran out of food and there was a riot on the ship. And she was a fair captain, so she wanted everybody to have equal food and share everything that was left. But some people felt like they were entitled to get more, but she denied that. And then there was a riot and she got hung up in the mast, and she wasn't fully dead yet, but she was tired and she was thrown overboard with something heavy tied to her legs, and she drowned, still with the rope around her neck. And when she experienced that, then afterwards she said, well, you know what, just being on a beach on one of those small bridges, wooden bridges that goes into the water you can jump off of, I never been able to stand there, look into the water. I can't be on a boat. I can't be on anything, look into the water, because that scares the shit out of me. And that's where she told me, I've never had the ability of having anything around my neck because it felt so painful right away. And I've had throat problems all of my life. And it felt like it was gone now. And she connected with me, a while later. She said, I can wear a scarf now. I haven't been sick. I've been on a boat yesterday. That was awesome. And I know I was scared of that like months ago, but it's gone. It must be the session. I'm like, whatever it is, it's gone. Good, right? So something like that is not, it's not out of a million. It happens quite a lot in these sessions. And often it's something that the client hasn't shared with you, but they share with you after, which is amazing, I think. So yeah, sometimes we are hiding something in our systems, and we do that to make sure that we will get the experience. So we need those extra abilities or skills to pick it up throughout our lives and change our lives to the better. That's it. What makes the SoulKey process so effective, even for people who are not particularly spiritual or familiar with hypnosis? That's a good question, because it is really effective. I've studied 7, 8 other modalities or protocols that doesn't even come near this. And it's not because it's a battle of who's the best. It's about who does the most on behalf of the client, because I think that's the problem. A lot of protocols is for the protocol, not necessarily the client. It's kind of like, let's jump on a sightseeing bus and see how many countries we can visit in the shortest amount of time possible. That's not how it's supposed to be. Let's spend the time needed. And let's do something that means something to the client, and let's show we build it up in a good way, because that's the most important thing in any case, right? So it's kind of like the way it's built up with the induction and the safety in it makes sure that everybody who made the choice, who had the effort of finding you, who came to your office, they're kind of like, they're already prepped. Of course they are. And the induction is built in such a way that it's easy for anyone. If you can visualize or not, doesn't even matter. You'll be there. It's all about the sensories, and everybody will get some sort of experience. Some clients talk a lot, some clients don't. So all the abilities of you asking questions is basically what's needed. And I think that's why it's so effective, because it does the job, and the client knows within a few minutes that, oh, this is all for me. We're doing this for me now. Because I've seen protocols where the client feels like, oh shit, I'm taking an exam right now. If I don't answer this right, my therapist will fire me. And why should they have that experience at all? So no, it's all about it's for them. How does SoulKey differ from other regression or spiritual modalities in the terms of depth and accessibility? I kind of like just mentioned that a little bit. In terms of depth, to me, it's not about the depth, because the deeper you take somebody into a trance level, the less they will be communicating with you, and the more they're kind of like closer to sleep or coma. So it's all about finding this perfect level where they can still, still communicate with the body, still communicate with you, still do whatever they need. But it's more like an opening. So we, instead of going into a deeper, lower frequency, at the same time in the background, we open up for a very higher frequency, more ultra in a way, which allows those soul communication hertz to be activated. And that's as close as I get to it without giving anything away. So I think that's probably some of the difference. And also the safety we create throughout the session, which makes the client able to do way more than if they're scared or if they don't understand what's happening. So there's so many layers to that as well. Safety, comfort, an opening, and again, knowing that it's all for them. It all makes a difference, a big difference, all of it. Let's look at some of the practical aspects of a SoulKey session. So what can someone expect to experience in a typical SoulKey session? Well, insightful wisdom, right? I have had clients who did every single station in the fireplace room, life between life, past lives, and maybe even 2 past lives in one session. That's a 3-4 hour session. It's a lot, and a lot of people will be overwhelmed. But if that's what they need, that's what they need, and it's okay. And I've had people who just got to the fireplace room, sat in a chair, and communicated telepathically with the dog for 3 hours, and they loved it. And I was like, okay, let me know when there's something more. Like, I kept moving on a little bit. So I kept wanting them to tell me, hey, what what's next step? Let me know if you need anything. And they never really needed anything. So, but it meant the world to them. So you never know what you're going to get. So you can expect everything beyond your expectation. The less you expect actually consciously, the more you'll gain. That kind of setup, right? So it may be past lives. It may be somebody who loved one who comes visit. It may be you counsel. It may be life between life. It may be like deep insights about your current life and why and your relationships and all of that. Oh yeah, it could be all of it. So that's just a teeny tiny bit of all of it. If someone feels overwhelmed after a basic SoulKey session, should the therapist suggest 2 separate sessions? No. So here's my thoughts on predicting the number of sessions needed. I don't believe that's possible because you never know. I'm pretty successful by seeing clients with a 1-session program. Even people who said, well, the past therapist I went through said it took like 10 sessions to deal with my trauma. And I'm like, so why are you calling me? Well, the trauma is still there. So apparently it didn't work. And I do 1 session and it's gone. I think there's something psychological when you say, hey, this problem takes 5 sessions. And usually it's the last one working. So am I just, spoiling the 4 others by doing nothing that's really, not of any interest? I wouldn't want to spend my time doing that. So I usually go, well, 1 session in most cases is everything you need, but they can get overwhelmed. So there's kind of like this 2 types of pathways you can choose throughout a session when you're the therapist. One, if you want to go investigate a lot of extra things because you love their journey and you're asking a lot of questions that doesn't necessarily have anything to do with your client because you just want to investigate, that may turn out to be really overwhelming on behalf of the client. But if you stick to the initial questions and if you're listening to them with the answers throughout the session and you ask them questions like, so what is it that you want to do next? Out of these 2 options, what is the next one you're going to choose? Stuff like that. You will only get what they need. Can they still be overwhelmed? Yes. Are they tired afterwards? Probably. So, which is also the reason why I'll always do sessions in the morning, starting at 9, ending at noon-ish. And I tell my clients, don't have any other plans for today. Get somebody else to pick up the kids if that's what you're doing. Don't go shopping. Don't do your tax returns. Don't go back to your job. Go back, put your legs up in the couch, just look at the window and allow everything to sink in. That's really important. How does a therapist know when a client is ready to move into the life in between life space? Easy. Ask them, what do you want to do next? Do you want to stay in the fireplace room? Or do you want to go to that part over there? And they'll say that part over there. You can't force them in there. So you just know because I would never, let's say a client knows a little bit about what we do and they go, I just want to go to the life between life and talk to my counselor. I'll say, well, that will be an option. I won't go there because they tell me to. I'll make sure that everything else that is part of the regular structure, that is part of the normalization of any other typical session, that we ask those questions first so we're not missing out on anything. Because remember, a conscious request is a conscious request. And that doesn't necessarily concur or have any resonance with the soul knowledge and the insights we know that's there for us. The conscious request can mess it all up. So I'll guide from questions and I'll make sure I'll ask the questions. And sometimes they go, well, I'm not going there right now. I'll still bring it up later. By asking, so do you want to go there later, or is it not today? They'll answer that right away. Even if there was the conscious biggest request to get there, in the middle of the session, they'll go, nope, that's not for me today. Say, okay, I asked the question, now you know why. Because superconscious or divine you is more important than your conscious. Oh, trust me, it's way more important. So that's my answer to that. What are some ways therapists can balance the client's capacity for processing insights while ensuring that they get the full SoulKey experience? Well, good question. So let me define the full SoulKey experience. The full SoulKey experience is a client who wants a session, a client who's induced, and a client who gets introduced to the fireplace room, everything from then on is the SoulKey experience. We have so many options. Why? To make sure that they will get everything they need. Some people go through everything. Some people do maybe just a couple of things. So as long as we do everything they want in this session, whatever they need right now, that is the full SoulKey experience. A full SoulKey experience is not making sure that we tick off all the boxes of all the stations and we've been there, we've done that. No, it's asking questions. What do you need now? What is your next step? And then give them two options. That's it. Do I recommend setting dates and prices for follow-up sessions ahead of time, or should we be guided by the client's journey? Definitely guided by the client's journey. And prices are on my website. I don't do like additional discounts or whatever just because they want another session. And speaking of another session, I don't think I've had a client yet who goes like, so when is my next session? Right after they're done. They're like, wow, this is a lot. You'll hear back from me, but I thought I wanted another session right away, but yeah, I need to stick to this for a while. Have I had returning clients? Yes, a lot of them, but we're talking about years in between, actually. So that's not a problem. So I will never do follow-up sessions or plan them ahead of time, because why would we? It doesn't lead to that. And some clients will feel like they were obligated to do it, and now it doesn't feel like it's right for them. And I don't want to. I just want to avoid that, so we're not being stuck in something that they feel like we kind of like pushed over their heads or something like that. So no, I don't want to do that. But let's jump into the philosophy just a little bit. How does SoulKey honor the connection between soul planning, the balance, and personal growth? Well, it does. It makes sure whatever the clients need right now, not as the human being, but as the combo of the soul and the human connecting, whatever they need right now in the challenges they have right now, whatever they need of insightful wisdom or physiological changes, or just maybe just healing and peace, whatever they need, they'll be getting that. And it comes with an understanding. It comes with a new wisdom, and it comes with a new internal connection. So it definitely merges all of it together. What role does the in-between space play in a soul's understanding of purpose, relationships, and challenges? Well, from our perspective as being the client, it doesn't really mean anything for the soul, because there's two different ways of visiting that place. When we eventually die and we go there, we have a completely different way of going through all of that, because we know, hey, this is the next step. But the journey we're having with clients is more like, it's not sightseeing, but it's a different journey. We're there to gather information, so we can use these stations in a different way. We can interact with some of the things that maybe only the soul does, but it's only to stimulate something in us right now that provides information and confirmation in who you are right now. And trust me, in the in-between life, there's so many things that you will not even be able to cope with as a human being, which is why you don't see it, because it doesn't make sense right now. You don't have the capacity of understanding it. So that's why we are not being exposed to that, because why would we? We shouldn't leave a session with 100 more questions than the 2 we came with. We should leave with many more answers than we thought we had questions for. That's how I would put it. How does SoulKey help bridge the gap between spiritual consciousness and practical personal development? I don't think there's a gap, though. Gap is an interesting choice of words, but definitely being in a SoulKey session, it connects the spiritual consciousness with your current consciousness and your personality. And by knowing these things, you'll find more confidence in you, self-love, self-respect, take a different responsibility, which makes your personal development maximized as much as possible with the wisdom you're gathering throughout the session. So that's how I would say that. A lot of people might feel slightly confused after a session because all the information needs to settle. But after a couple of days, it's like, yep, I know exactly what this is. I'm just doing it. And the life perspective has already changed a little bit. And some of the physiological issues they may have had before that seems to be gone somehow. And now they got the upgrade needed. It's kind of like a download. You're getting an upgrade. That's how I would say it anyway. So yeah, I think that's the answer for that. In my view, why is it important for everyday people, not just therapists or spiritual inclined individuals, to connect with the soul's journey? Okay, let me do this. I don't think it's important to any random person. I think it's important for those who feel like there's answers. I feel it's important for those who have curiosity. For those who feel like there's something more for me, then it's important, right? Because I know whatever they're looking for, something like SoulKey will definitely provide it to them with the comfort of them knowing all the information came from a higher self of them. It wasn't the therapist telling them what to do, which is a really comfort, like really comfort. And I think it's also like validation. My conscious will, let's say if I had a SoulKey session with someone where they told me everything that I was supposed to experience, I would doubt that afterwards, and I'll have no trust in information, because people telling you what to think, feel, sense, or whatever, now you're creating images built off of that. But a SoulKey session where you ask the questions and now the client tells you what they experience, now it comes from real emotions and real experiences. And now they put two and two together. Way more beautiful in so many ways. What is my philosophical perspective on soul agreements and how they influence our relationships and life path? You know what? I actually, in the very beginning, I believed in, soulmates and all of that, the romantic part of that. You're meant to be with one, and there's one other soul for you, blah, 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 all of that. But I don't anymore. Can you have deep soul connections with people? Yes. It can be emotional, it could be sexual, it could be deep friendships, it could be just passion, it could be many things. Because sometimes you're just aligned in the energy. It's not necessarily because you know each other, just because you just, fit very well together. But sometimes there's a deeper soul connection. It could be an old connection from way back. It could be someone from your secondary soul group. Rarely it's someone from your primary soul group, because it's more likely, again, based on all of my experiences, most of the people who's in a primary soul group are more likely to be the ones that could be your husband for a little bit and then turns out to be an asshole and kicks you to the on the streets and beats you up or whatever to make you change your life and make different choices. Out of love on a soul level, remember, soul hat, human hat, what an asshole. Just as we keep clear on that. Or your boss that fires you in the most inconvenient moment, or the drunk driver that hits you and your family in the worst moment ever. I believe that there's soul agreements there. Human hat, fuck that, honestly. Soul hat, wow, did I really, what is my wish for that? What kind of knowledge do I want to gain? What kind of emotions am I going through, and how can I utilize that later on? So I keep doing this. Otherwise, I think I'll go crazy. And we need we need that balance of knowing that both realities are real all the time. So just remember from which hat you're asking the question, and which hat is listening to the answer. That's really important, because you will trigger yourself in different ways. So that's perfect. Another thing is also, if we look at the broader, kind of like, let's see, I'm just going to do this. Here we go. Broader perspective or impact on SoulKey. So here's a question on that. Like, how has SoulKey helped clients heal from emotional pain or trauma tied to past lives? As I kind of like mentioned a little bit before, so I'm going to run through this quite quickly. Sometimes there's hidden things in a past life that resonates with how you feel right now, or your body right now, or your mindset right now. And it's there because now it's a beacon telling you something's wrong, and you might have seen all the conventional therapists or whatever, or went to the doctor or whatever, and there's really no answer. And everybody goes, I'm not really sure what that is. Maybe it's just you, because we can't really find the source of that. And all of a sudden you figure out, oh, I might want to do this SoulKey kind of thing in our past life. And in a past life, there's something that refers to it. And now you know why. But now that's all cleared up. Here's another package of information because you planted the beacon. You made a choice. You went looking for it. And now here's the package of information you need now to change your life. That's how I see it. What do you think makes the SoulKey process resonate so deeply with people of all spiritual backgrounds? Oh, I'm going to, go back to one of those previous answers saying it's the safety, the comfort, it's the trust, it's how it's built. It's because it's all about the client. And talking about religious beliefs, so in the very beginning when I did SoulKey sessions, and I didn't not SoulKey sessions, just past life regression. And Danish guy taught me that, the first stuff that I knew was taught by a Danish guy. And it wasn't really good. Like, I think that I never really connected with my client's higher self or anything like that. I think it was semi-conscious. And most of those sessions were people who thought they were either Jesus or Mary or whatever, or some other icon. And they got a blast out of that. I was like, there's no real answers in this. It's just confirmation of ego. But when I changed the game, doing SoulKey and all of that, and it's a different perspective, I haven't had anyone who said they were anything like that. But there might be, I've had people who said there's a Christ energy present, which means something to them. Okay. But the experience is something different. So everybody who sees something that might reference to a religious belief or anything like that, I think it's there as a comfort. And I just approach that as, of course, it's welcome, because to me, it's speaking to the conscious of my client to make sure it's okay. It's still within your belief system. But as we move on with that, it always turns out to be something completely beyond religion that is even more divine or godlike, because they know, wow, my higher self, my spiritual conscious is everything that runs my world. So that's kind of like the God grid. And God is not in any reference to any God known right now. It's way beyond that. That's how I see it. And I think it's important also not to make past life regression or SoulKey religious at all, because religion also is a man-made kind of thing to give people comfort and at least believe in something. But SoulKey is all about believing in you. And I think that's important. There's nothing I dictate. It's just my perspective on it, my own personal opinion. But I welcome everyone who has different meanings or different beliefs or whatever. And it always turns out to be a great session. And some of them actually believe in something else when they leave, which is more likely them than something out there. Because real trust and real love comes from in here, not somewhere out there, right? So I think that's my answer to that. What do therapists gain personally and professionally by becoming certified in SoulKey? Well, I think I initially said, hey, I'm getting a front seat for life-changing moments, being able to witness spiritual wisdom and philosophy and amazing change. So, and besides that, going through a SoulKey therapy certification takes you through all the steps personally. You will have multiple sessions. You will have a deeper meaning and understanding of everything. And now you can guide other people to have the same experience. I think the way the pricing is right now, that I think getting certified so you can do this with other people. Not everybody wants to do that. Some people just want it, to get it so they know it. That equals 2 clients. The investment in that is just 2 clients, maybe 2.5, maybe 3 if you lower your prices a little bit. But that's it, right? But you will have a 3-day in-depth, really amazing journey where everybody gets through all the stations and all of that, because that's part of it, and everybody will gain something. And I kind of like believe you're not the same leaving as you were, getting to the class. Definitely, you're changed in a good way, and you know more about you. So there's a lot of stuff there, no doubt about that. Let's see. What is that next one? Oh, here we go. Can SoulKey Therapy provide clarity for people who feel stuck or lost in their lives? Yes. I think I have answered that as well. It's all about those hidden messages, like what to do next, why you should believe in yourself, why you're way better than you think you are, why you need to focus on something different. And it might be you giving yourself those answers. It might be a spirit guide or a counselor or whatever, but it all comes from you. And you always gain more than you think. There's no doubt. So absolutely, I would say most of the people who are getting a SoulKey session feel somehow stuck or lost in their lives. So I think that's the requirement of actually wanting a session to begin with. If people go like, it might just be funny, I'm like, I'm not really interested in providing you a session then, if it's just for fun. No, give me something that's personalized, emotional, and we'll get there, right? What are some of the most common misconceptions about regression therapy, and how does SoulKey address them? Well, misconceptions are usually like in terms of skeptics, like they go like, we can't all be kings and queens, and they think we'll provide all the information. But SoulKey builds this safe bubble where we teach our clients to connect with everything they are and easily speak out their minds, and listening to themselves as they give themselves wisdom. That's an amazing part of that. And SoulKey addresses that also by briefly sharing how it works. And saying that is, I never tell a client fully what we're supposed to do, what's going to happen. I give them maybe one step ahead of time. That's it. Because if they know too much about the practical stuff, the logistics, doing a SoulKey session, they will have performance anxiety even before we start, because there's too much for the conscious to keep track of. But if you want to get answers about your life, maybe experience a past life or in between life, connect with your soul, SoulKey would be something for you. That's as fast as I can do it. And in that short sentence, there will be a lot of information that most people go, yep, that's what I want. Yep. What are some of the most surprising insights clients have shared after a SoulKey session? That's a good question. Let me think about that, because there's so many, really. And well, let's just generalize that a little bit now, instead of bringing out a specific. The insights that is generally the most surprising is when clients afterwards go like, oh, so I'm actually all this, and this is why I chose my body, and now I know why. And if I counter question any of that with the mindset they had before they got to this session, they will just squash that immediately. Like, no, that's not it. I'm doing this now. So that's also confirmation for me to know, like, they are already accepted it. They actually chose the right path now. They're doing it already, which is a great advantage, and which I love clients to do, because it's kind of fun to bring out their own mindset, and they're just going to squash it right away, which means it's not there anymore. They're not going back to who they were. But I've heard and seen some very personalized opinions and messages afterwards that means a lot to that person, but maybe it just seems generalized if I share that out with the public, but it means a lot to that person. Why do certain places, people, or experiences feel familiar as if we known them before? How can SoulKey explore this? Well, of course it does. We got the deja vu kind of experiences sometimes, and there's sometimes parts of the world we're really attracted to. We don't know why. Or sometimes there's languages we feel like, that's easy, or I kind of understand it. Or let's say there's something you can suddenly do that you didn't know you could. I believe there's a connection to that. If you go dive into Dr. Ian Stevenson's books on children's memories of past lives, it's so astonishing what's happening. Definitely, there's you know there's places that seems familiar that you've probably been before. I mentioned my past life in Crete. It turned out the first time I was there, I took an off-road trip, and I just knew if we're going to follow this road, there's going to be one. We're going to go past the mines, and then we're going to end up in a small rock-made harbor. And it all turned out to be true. And my then partner said, like, "How did you know this?" I'm like, "I don't know. It just felt right. I just knew." And afterwards, it turned out to be the area I lived in when I had a past life there. I just knew the area. And when I was there, I was just completely silent. I just felt at home. And I couldn't really explain it, though. So there's a lot of those. There's people who just suddenly seem very familiar with things around them, even though it's the first time they visit. And that's just it. I think it triggers you somewhere in your energy, and it's okay. It feels emotionally attached to that, and it's okay. It might trigger your mind a little bit, and sometimes we know there's an echo effect where people go like, "Didn't we just experience this?" Because there's an echo effect in the brain. But I'm talking about those real moments where there's actually a real natural attraction. That happens way more than you think. So sometimes when you plan out a vacation, it's more likely to be, those parts of you who are attracted to a certain area that it might have something to do with a past life, even without you knowing. I'm just saying. What role does free will play in a soul's journey? Well, we all have it. We're being born in this life stripped of all of our emotions, knowledge, skills, or memories. In most cases, kids have a tendency of remembering past lives. But it plays in a lot, right? Because here you are being influenced in the first part of your life to do what everybody else wants you to do. And at some certain point, you're going to find out, no, I'm me. I want to do me. This is my life. And you start making different decisions and getting new experiences. And I think that's the entire thing. That's the school we're in. This is not vacation. This is Earth. Just look out the window and see how much fucking drama there is out there. You didn't choose this because you just want to, walk around, sip drinks and, have fun. It's also because this is a challenge. So it's soul ego who chose this from a very high positive intention. But free will is also where free will can make you choose all the stuff that you shouldn't. Free will is also your companion when you make a new, different choice. So use it wisely. I'm just saying, I'm just playing with you right now, but just use it wisely, right? How can someone use the insights gained on a SoulKey session to transform their relationships, career, personal goals? Well, again, reference to some of the past stuff I talked about. When you have sudden insights on, let's say, family constellations, it might be in a past life that your now sister was your mom, and that's why your sister right now want to, treat you like a daughter, and that's why you have a conflict. There might be something there. And when it usually lets go. And when you change that energy around it, let's say the sister, she will do the same thing too, and conflict gone. It's not like, hey, sister, yesterday I was told that you were my mom in a past life, so quit doing that. And that's not what we're looking for. It's all within the energetics of us and everything we kind of like that glows from us and how we attract things. So absolutely, like everything can be used in relationships. Also creating new relationships or being comfortable in a relationship. Absolutely. But first of all, by knowing who you are. How could you ever love someone if you don't love yourself? How can you ever take care of someone if you don't take care of yourself? Like from that philosophy. If somebody is curious but skeptical, what would you tell them about the value of a SoulKey session? Well, similar things I already said. Like, so if you must be curious about something. So what makes you, I always want to turn the table a little bit. Why is it still curious to you? Like, what seems important? and I love that you're skeptical, because we all should be more skeptical. But what is there in there that attracts you right now? Let's talk about that instead. So I usually just turn the tables a little bit. I don't want to do any promises and go like, well, if you do a SoulKey session, you're guaranteed this and that. No, we have options. But I'll say you'll definitely get an experience. And the experience might be beyond what you think is possible. And you might be getting more answers than you think you're looking for. But it's all good though. And there's always a perfect timing. And the perfect timing is when the client goes, I think it's now. Then we do it. If they go, well, we can do it whenever you have time. Like, no, when do you want to do it? When does it feel right to you? Because for some reason that turns out to be better sessions. I'm just saying. So knowing what you know right now, right? So let's say you are a client. Let me bring out an interesting question. If you had one question to your soul, what kind of question would that be? If you could ask your soul one question, what would that be? Think about that. It might be really interesting. Or what would you want to learn from a past life experience? What would that mean to you? What's happening right now that you feel like, there must be some answers somewhere? What is that thing? Or what patterns in your current life could be possibly tied to a soul agreement with someone, where the agreement is something different from what the relationship is right now? Those things are things we can figure out. So I hope all of this gave you, this is 90 minutes of me talking about SoulKey. I hope this gave you some answers or made you curious. This is recorded November 27th, 2024. And I know we got Danish course coming up in springtime 25. We got a American/online course coming up, hopefully in January in 25, possibly out of San Diego. So there's things coming. And a certification class will always be 3 days. You will get access to a lot of pre-content, so you can kind of like study it beforehand. And there'll be theory in the mornings and sessions in the afternoon. And it's a journey. It's a journey. Absolutely it is. So if you're more curious, go to soulkeytraining.com or go to thehypnoacademy.com to get more information. There might be a link somewhere around this video. And if you have more questions, let me know. And this was Hypnotize Me, the podcast. And my name is Martin Castor. And hope to see you either in a class or online or somewhere out there in the big world. Take care.